out the truck, started talking to some aliens. Said I'm the best mechanic this side of the Rockies. If I can get your bird in the air, you gotta swear to let me drive for a while. Ooh, she was a crazy dancer. Goddamn, I can't believe after reality won't collapse if we can find your hands. It wasn't long before the saucer hummed, and I knew straight away this was gonna be fun. We decided to race along. I would pass with me in the truck and her in the air, and the moon to the left like a roadside flare, illuminating the valley we call paradise. Ooh, she was a crazy dancer. Goddamn, I can't spit any faster. Reality won't collapse so we can find your hands. Ooh, she was a crazy dancer. Goddamn, I can't spit any faster. Reality won't collapse so we can find your hands. Bishop Creek when I saw them burn. Took a sharp right on something voted too a little too fast for her with lights out. She circled round and lost altitude, dropped hard and fast into the lower pool. On a new moon you'll see through those remains. Ooh, she was a crazy dancer. Goddamn, I can't spin any faster. Reality won't collapse so we can find your hands. Ooh, she was a crazy dancer. Goddamn, I can't spin any faster. Reality won't collapse so we can find your hands.
Bodega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with a Bodega and sharing one of yours. click that like. If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content. Did you know 70% of all the people in the world believe in angels? I won't say all the people in the world, but we'll just go with we'll go with North America. 70% of all the people believe in angels. Now, if you tell them that you've seen an angel, I'm going to guarantee 70% or more is going to tell you that they don't believe you. It's a funny little, it's funny. They believe in them, but you tell them that you've seen one, and they're going to deny it. Everyone, I'm Rai Kodega, and this is Codex of Curiosities. I'm looking forward to having you guys on tonight. Tonight is one of my famous shows, the Sea to Sea, reminiscent of Art Bell's Coast to Coast. So what I'm going to be doing tonight is I'm going to be sharing out that link in the comments. If you have a story to tell, you have an experience, or you just got something to talk about, by all means, come on the show. I'll bring you on one at a time, and we'll sit and talk about it. I might have a couple other special guests coming on tonight. We'll wait and see if they are able to make it. If not, it is what it is. So just roll with it. Now, you can see behind me, I can see those the lights flashing. Not those lights, but over here, we got some lightning going on. So hopefully the storm is not going to come in here. For those who don't know, I record in my rooftop here in Mexico, and it is subject to the weather. So if this weather is coming in, well, it is what it is. We'll just roll with it. Now, just a couple little bit of housekeeping as usual. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, I'd love it if you hit the like, comment away, tell me some stories in the comments. If you don't want to come on, that's fine. Write out your story in the comments and I'll read it out loud. Also, I am developing some new t-shirts, some new merch in my Printify store. I will put that link down in the bio, in my show notes. I don't have it right now, but if you go to my YouTube channel, I should have a link there somewhere from my Printify store. I've also got Patreon as well, and you guys do you. If you want to, you can subscribe to the channel as well. You can be a member of the YouTube channel, and then you get some cool little icons and stickers beside your name. Is it worth it? Yeah, why not? All right, everyone. Let's just see. Let's see who's all here. Let's get some shout outs to some of our people. I also want to say, I want to shout out to some of, I brought on some new moderators. So I definitely want to shout out, to Rayanne or Mouse, Tyler and Justin. Definitely, really helping a lot, and it's much appreciated. Really is. So really appreciate that. Justin says, if it snows there, then the apocalypse has begun, and has been nice knowing y'all. Yeah, exactly. I'm in Florida Gulf side. It's storming here. Yeah, I'm on the other side. I'm in the Gulf of Mexico on the bottom side. So yeah, this is if it comes, it comes, whatever. So I'm just going to share out that I'm going to share out the link here. I'm just going to tell a story, though. I've had this one story that I've been holding on for a while, but this is a dream, okay? But people are like, why are you sharing a dream? Well, because this dream is pretty crazy that I had. Now this dream was me setting intention before I went to bed. I was like, you know what? Whenever I look up at the stars, it always feels like home. I'm looking at these stars, and it's just this. It's like this calling, this longing to go home. And I said, "Why is that? Can my dream tell me?" So I'm going to tell you this dream. I wrote it out the best I could. Now, the only thing I made up in this dream are just the names of the spaceships. Okay, so this is going to sound crazy, but this is it. So this was August 19th, 2014. I've labeled it Time Travel and Aliens. So the night prior to falling asleep, I put the intentions out as to why, whenever I look up in the stars, I feel as if I'm home, though I have a love for Earth still. Okay, so here it goes. I was on a large military spaceship we had named Pegasus. We had just come out of hyperspace and into an area within close proximity to where we knew our enemy ships would be located. This was the enemy that attacked us on Earth. This was the enemy that brought us together, and this was the enemy that killed so many. We were sure of it. After the great attack, our world formed a one-world government and a one-world military, and we followed, hell-bent on revenge.
These aliens had stolen so many lives from us, and we were going to make them pay. As our ship slowed to a halt, we were within range, and the battle commenced. We fired first. Our ship sent a barrage of lasers at the enemy ship, and then they responded by firing back. At this point, the attack, where am I? Sorry. At this point, the attack pilots who piloted the smaller ships, which I was also part of, raced to our space interceptors. They were in the hangar of our ship, and I approached mine. I took note of it, of the look. The cockpit looked like a glass globe that the pilot fit comfortably in. As I approached mine, inside. Extending off the back of the globe were 3 hollow tubes that housed the propulsion engines, which were tiny but very powerful. Now, this kind of look reminds me of the movie Oblivion with Tom Cruise, that kind of ship almost in a way. The space interceptors were equipped with powerful armaments and also a defensive ray shield as well. We piloted the fighters out of the hangar and entered the space between the 2 large ships. We encountered the enemy's fired fleet that was already engaging our ship. The battle ensued, and within what felt like a short bit of time, my whole squadron was all destroyed except for myself. I was worried that I was not be able to do any real damage, so I made a risky last-ditch maneuver. I flew my interceptor into the hangar of the enemy ship. I began blasting away at the remaining enemy fighters that were there, and there was also personnel in the hangar as well. At that point, there was a couple things that began to strike me as odd. Firstly, as to why was I able to enter the hangar of the ship, like to pass through the shields with no problem? Secondly, I felt as if I had been here before. I recognized this ship. Yeah, it looked like ours, but something familiar. I was confused as I couldn't see it before. Sorry, 1 second, just scrolling up here. Like a haze that made my eyes and mind not able to see this. And then, thirdly, when I was in the hangar blasting away, there truly was no resistance. Why? It's always a strange. It was as if they submitted and did not want any violence. And I could start to see everything for what it was. I had been blinded and brainwashed with propaganda. Kind of sounds a little bit familiar, don't you guys agree? You know, some craziness, propaganda. All right, so I'm going to go back to that as I was reading. Sorry, I just get distracted sometimes. It happens. At this point, I felt like I had just woken up from a foggy nightmare, and I could start to see everything for what it was. I'd been blinded and brainwashed with the propaganda. The enemy was not the enemy that the government and military had made them out to be. They did not seem to be the savages or terrorists that we had been educated about. It was all propaganda. In fact, we were the aggressors, and they were simply fighting for their lives. I was in shock, sitting there. And that's when I noticed an officer in the hangar and a robotic humanoid waved to me, gesturing me to exit my craft and to follow them. Still in shock, I exited my craft and followed them through the large automated hangar doors. They not only greeted me, but they did nothing to restrain me. There was a sense of trust that I would not do anything or commit any other violent act towards them, that they were right. And they were right. Fighting or attacking them was the last thing on my mind. Shock gave way to a feeling of calm, and unbeknownst to me, it would eventually become a sense of peace and belonging, something I never truly felt back on Earth. I was escorted to the bridge of the ship, and I began to wander around. There was no feelings of being threatened or uneasiness. Not only did I recognize the ship with even more detail, but the aliens began to seem more familiar. They were truly human-looking in appearance, but they were far more different. There was a warmth radiating from them, not like the cold, hard world I had just known. They were being fed the information and emotions and life that they wanted us to live. Unexpectedly, thoughts started to enter my mind, thoughts that were not my own. I started to hear and see, and in an instant, I was blasted with a bright light and thundering sound, as if I had walked into a hole within space. I was hit with a wave of wisdom and the collective memory of the alien race, the memories that I had been denied my entire life on Earth. It was as if I passed through a void within myself that was blocking everything. I felt it in my spirit. I felt something break way, and the wisdom flooded into my mind like a dam being breached by the torrent of floodwaters. It was the missing piece of the puzzle that I had always been searching for. I stumbled backwards. Oh. I stumbled backwards a couple of steps, but regained my composure. At that very moment, I knew all that was happening within the family. I had reestablished my connection. I was home. I was with my people, my star family. Another one of the alien starships, the star families, that is, the aptly named Orion, arrived out of some sort of hyperspace, and it almost instantly began to open a rift in space and time. They were going to travel back in time to investigate how the humans came into possession of what appeared to be one of the star family's starships. And decades later, they were able to pilot here to this exact location and attack us. I seemed to start to realize that I was attacking my own star family. Wait, I attacked us? Thinking back now on what had happened on Earth, I personally, truly never seen the spaceship that was in Earth's orbit actually attack Earth. All we ever saw was the media's videos of the destruction. The government and military proclaiming that they did, and we all believed it. We all believed it had to be something else. They couldn't be humans that have inflicted such violence and loss on us. Now I'm starting to see. I was still unsure of how I transformed into believing I was a human from Earth and the knowledge I once had lost. I could not recall how the event took place, but something did come back to me, something I wished I remembered 10 minutes prior. The Orion that traveled through the rift was in fact the ship that humans were using to attack us, the exact one, the Pegasus. Somehow they managed to commandeer that ship, and they could not access all the ship's functions, but they did manage to outfit the ship with some of their own technology, which allowed them to override like a rudimentary hot wiring of a car. Something that I learned back on Earth. They renamed the ship the Pegasus, and then they were able to pilot back to the exact coordinates and attack us. Like a domino event, the Orion went back in time, continuing the cycle. My own personal memories were still coming back to me, and that's when I realized that I was on the Orion that just left in the womb of my mother. Yeah, like I said, this is a crazy, crazy dream, okay? So this is this is a dream that I had. It was so in depth that was it a dream? Okay. I raced to one of the control consoles where I was able to bring up a detailed scanned version of the human's ship Pegasus. I was able to locate the general in charge. I tried to contact him to halt this attack and stand down, but he closed all channels to us. I then scanned the ship for my close friend Robert in navigation. I was able to contact him and tried in quick attempt to explain the situation and to get them to stop. Rob was open to listening to me, but the transmission was cut short. The Pegasus went into hyperspace and disappeared. They had come here to do what they needed to do, and they fled. We pursued the trail and found the ship already in the process of attacking one of our home planets. And again, we are not the aggressive, offensive type of beings, but we were defending our lives. I transported down to the Citadel, where I watched the fight ensue. Though I was now back with my peaceful family, I had still the Earth upbringing. I could feel the anger boil in my body, and I watched as the human military were slaughtering my fellow star families. I commanded them all to stop. My voice bellowed over the whole action, and everyone stopped and looked up. They all sat down and put their weapons on the ground. It was amazing. Well, almost all did, but the commanding military officers resisted. They wanted the fighting to continue. At this point, I was able to deduce that they were not human either, that they are another race as well, hell-bent on destruction and power. I had heard of reptilians before, and I knew that these were them. I walked up to the commanding officer. He was a major, and I pulled out a handgun. I held it to his head, and I told him, "End this now, or you'll have to count to 5 before I pull the trigger." He laughed in a sinister laugh and said, "You have returned to your star family. You won't be able to do it. They cannot commit such acts of violence. They can only defend themselves." Well, considering I was raised on Earth, I had a mixed life. I hit 5 and pulled the trigger. "Next!" I yelled. I went to the next in line and stated the same thing. He was a bit more understanding and called the offensive off. We were able to imprison the rest of the reptilians and clean up the began, healing the injured and rebuilding from the damage. The humans were educated on the truths of what all had happened and the lies they were being led to believe. One thing, though, was that these events are going to repeat themselves again due to the Orion traveling back in time. But it was decided that, without causing too many ripples in the space-time, to send a contingent of our own back in time before the Orion appears. They will be disconnected from the collective consciousness and will need to be discreet as possible. They'll be integrated within the human society. They will blend in. They will become one with the humans, They will be sleepers. They will slowly help to increase the positive vibrations of the human race, leading to a better future. Through their memories will be gone. They will have the soul of our star family within them. I have once again returned and will be waiting the return of the Orion and the reawakening. Yeah. So that was my crazy, crazy dream of craziness. So if you have any questions on that, that's fantastic. Also, I have a special guest that I'm bringing on. I'm going to just jump right into it. It's Brad from the Awaken podcast. I interviewed him just on Thursday, actually. So that interview will be coming out in mid-August. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Brad to the show. And let's do that. Hey, Brad, welcome to Codex of Curiosities again.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Good. So are you back home?
Yes, I'm back in my office, man. I don't have any more laundry room interviews to do.
No problem. Yeah, for those who don't know, Brad was on vacation, and while still on vacation, doing all these interviews from his laundry room, which had good acoustics. It actually sounded fantastic. So no worries there. So Brad, welcome.
Thanks, buddy.
So today, this is what I do. Every now and then I run one of these. I call it C to C, reminiscent of Coast to Coast, Art Bell style. We bring people on who've had experiences, just one-offs experiences. So also, Brad, so if you want to share anything, by all means. And Brad has a little bit of a cold, so he'll be muting his mic every now and then. Not to worry, I will notice that and step in when I need to step in.
Yep. Once again, I'm still coughing from the other night, man. I'm sorry, dude.
I'm gonna
try to control it. I got some water here, but yeah, I'm interested to hear some stories, man. I love this kind of stuff. So,
me too. I'm just going to adjust my camera here. I'm just, I feel that I'm, there we go. That's a little better. I felt like I'm so far away and need to zoom in a little bit. So, well, Brad, how about yourself? Do you have, I'm going to share the link here once more into our chat, but do you have any stories yourself, any experiences that you want to share?
I wish I did. Well, I mean, I don't know that I wish I did. I mean, truthfully, everybody in my family has had something happen to them. And as recent as even like a couple of weeks ago, my mom still has stuff happening in her backyard all the time, and it picked up since my dad died, which my dad died in February of 2023.
Oh shit! Sorry about that.
Yeah, and I have this theory that people who have trauma in their lives, or people who are lower vibrational because of like death or depression, or something that happened in their lives or in the past life, that they begin to see things a little clearer. I mean, a little easier. The veil is a little bit thinner, and I think that's a vibrational thing, right? I think that's like because I don't really experience things, but I think it's, I hope I never do, but I think it's from always having this mentality that no matter what, nothing can stop me, nothing can keep me down, kind of thing. I don't know if that sounds conceited or not. I don't mean like that.
No, not at all. No, I think it answers a lot. And then there's me. I have tons of experiences. I have. I'm not saying I had an easy life. I'm not saying I had a hard life either. But there's been a lot of things that ghosts and paranormal seems to be the biggest thing that I saw. Like things that I've seen, other than a couple of UFOs, but that is about it. But I would say that the paranormal side of it, I see that a lot. It's things moving, things peeking around the corners consistently and constantly. And I would say that my daughter has started to see stuff as well too, and that's one issue that I have. And I'm like, not that my daughter's seeing stuff, but how do I deal with that? Because when I was a kid, I used to see stuff as well. And my parents would always be like, oh, that's nothing. You're not seeing anything. And I don't feel that I should be denying my daughter that, but I also want to make sure to tell her to protect her. I want to make sure she knows how to protect herself, which is something we talked about, where I was like, in the name of Jesus Christ, tell you to get the hell out of here, kind of thing. It's one of those things. So I want to make sure that she knows that she has the power to do that, because that was something else that was never instilled in me. Even though I was raised Catholic, I wouldn't say staunch Catholic, but it was consistently going to church every Sunday, sometimes twice a week, not often, but sometimes twice a week. And it was also, I would say it was all surface religion, because they never dive deep into this realm. We talk about the love and light of the Bible kind of thing, but that's one issue, is that we never actually face the darkness or the demons, and it's out there. People, I don't want people to think that it's all just butterflies and rainbows and everything. Like there's some bad shit out there, and I think you all need to be prepared for that, and not believe that it's not out there.
Man, I'm sorry, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing that you guys can see things at such a young age. I mean, is it, I say that about the trauma thing, but it's like, I think most people who are doing what we do have this like I lost 4 best friends to crazy accidents before, right? Like suicide and like car accidents and work accidents and stuff like that. So it almost feels like maybe the only way to be able to, experience things and see things is through, like I said, that kind of trauma. But if you're a kid, what trauma? Your daughter hasn't had any trauma. You sound like an amazing dad. So like,
no, yeah, she has not. Possibly, I feel though that I don't know. It's that I feel that some people can see through the veil. That it's all there. It's just a matter of actually possibly being able to see through it and to see it. And at that age, it's terrifying, though. I will say it is terrifying. Like I've told my viewers lots of times, like my first real big experience when I was around 9 years old, I had an out of body experience. I was running a race, and I decided that I needed to go faster and push myself harder than I ever had. And at that point, that's when I shot out of my head, and I'm watching about 15 feet up above everybody, watching everybody run. And then when I saw myself running, that's when I came back down. I came back down at this point, like get sucked right back into myself. And, I've always been, I don't want to say open to these experiences, but it's kind of like, I found it interesting. It wasn't like I was like maybe denying it or closing that off, because I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And that's, I didn't have the wherewithal to keep my mouth shut. And I decided that I'm going to tell everybody that's there that I just had this experience. And so when I had this experience and I tell everybody, then everybody, wants to stay away from me because I'm the weird kid. It's crazy in that sense.
Do you think that everybody has had an experience at some point, but they just have, like, I feel like something has happened to me before, but I've kind of like blocked it out or like ignored it somehow, because I have this like a recurring memory that I saw lights in the sky at some point, but I don't know that there was ever any missing time or abduction scenarios or anything like that. I just, I might have told it on your podcast, but like there was a time where I found a video online, and it happened to be like right over my parents' house, right?
Yes,
right
yes,
over the house where I grew up. And, that was sort of the catalyst for me to want to investigate more about what's going on in that area, which led to obviously the other stuff I started researching and investigating into. But, yeah, I feel like I saw something. There was always weird things in where I live. We lived in the national forest. Obviously, there's going to be weird things that can go on.
Of course.
Yeah, and my mom, man, she called me like a couple months ago, and she was like, it was like 1:30 in the morning. She knows I stay up late because I work. I own my own business and stuff, so I'm always up late working. And she called me one night, and she's like, "Hey, I want to show you this." And she showed me there was like a light in the sky. Obviously, it was a UFO right above the trees.
Yeah.
But she was like, she's like, it's got to be like a radio tower. I'm like, No, you've been there for 60 years. I doubt that that's a radio tower, but she was
Yeah,
trying to
like
figure, everything she could.
right there's a radio tower. That's
Mm.
that's and it's been there the whole time. If something just appears out of nowhere, that's not a radio tower. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And then her neighbor had her husband die as well recently, like 6 months ago or something like that.
Okay.
And so both of them were standing in between yards. They each have a few acres, right? So they were kind of separated, and they were standing in each of their yards. And this was like a month or so ago, and they saw like 100 orbs flying around in the backyard. And then yeah, my mom she's like, they must have been fireflies, and she's like, but they couldn't have been because they looked different. They looked like little balls floating around, and then she had this like shadow. They both like jumped because they both saw it at the same time. It was this like figure that all they could say it was like colorless shape. It had a shape of a person, and it was standing in the woods. And that's the best that they can do to describe it. They said it almost didn't exist. It wasn't there, but it was. You could see a shadow or an outline of something.
Yeah.
And again, that was as recent as, and this is the same spot where the UFOs were, of the video I saw of the UFOs. This is the same spot my dad had an encounter when he was hunting right behind our house. This is the same spot my niece has seen orbs. This is the same spot that my grandma used to go in the backyard. She lived there before my mom and dad. And she used to go in the backyard to feed the chickens, and like she would like just make little grunts and stuff in the woods, and the woods would grunt back. You know what I mean? Like, but she always said it was Bigfoot. So like,
like the stories that I've heard, orbs and Bigfoot,
right?
They go hand in hand. It's kind of that craziness of that. You said your father had an experience in those woods. What was that experience?
Have you ever seen Missing 411?
Yeah. Yep.
That's the best way I can describe it. Like, so my dad is German, of this German descent. I mean, we've been in South Carolina for 150 years, but our family is German, like our bloodline is German. And so he fit the description of a lot of those things. My dad died like 2 months after this encounter, by the way. He was in his tree stand, which was not very high off the ground. But he had all the niceties, heaters and stuff like that. And so he was kind of a lazy hunter in a way. You know what I mean? Like he just
it was more to get away sometimes.
Yeah,
just to get away. Yeah.
But it was even though it was not high off the ground, it was a tall tree stand. Like it was a big long box. And he said that something was banging on the tree stand, high and low, above, on the top of it, all around. And he has cameras around his house, or he did have cameras around the house, and he checked it. He thought it was one of me or my two brothers, just like
messing with him.
Yeah, screwing with him. And but we wouldn't do that. We're not stupid. I mean, my dad will shoot you he's a retired cop, or he was a retired cop. So like, we knew better than to do that. And he was just telling me about it, and he said he peeked his head out and he didn't see anything. But he just had this eerie feeling like he had to get out of there, and like, yeah, which is the same. You hear those kind of things all the time. You get the silent woods and the eerie sound, the eerie feeling like you better get out of here or something like that. And but it lines up, man. It lines up with everything that every time somebody has some kind of encounter, it's always in that exact same area. And I say it's Bigfoot. I say it's an encounter because, again, he's a hunter, German, of this German descent and all this. And then again, he died 2 months later. So it fits the same thing as the Missing 411 documentary, except he didn't go missing, right? It was always like, there's always like some kind of ailment that the hunter has, and then they go missing. But he didn't go missing. So that's the only difference. Wow. But that's the best way to describe it. But there's in that area, if I may, I don't want to steal your show here, but
no, man. This is awesome. Keep going.
In that same area, my mom and dad were in the yard one day, and they were like just messing around. They had a little garden, and they were messing around, and a unmarked helicopter just hovered right above them, right above their yard. And wow. In that same area, and my dad retired deputy sheriff, like I said, so he knows if it's like a sheriff's department helicopter or any of that kind of stuff. And he said it was unmarked, and the people were wearing like, you know, like all black and stuff like that. And they just said it was just the strangest thing that they had ever seen, dude. It was like, but weird stuff, man. I'm telling you, weird stuff always happens in that area. When I was a kid, and I used to live we used to live right beside my grandma, which is the house my mom obviously lives in now.
Yep.
But we would cross the field to go to my grandma's house, and me and my brothers were always just like, every time we got to that area right where I'm talking about, it just felt like something was watching us, and we would just haul ass across the field. You know, like it would be a terrifying sprint. You know, it wasn't every night, but it was like some nights you just felt like somebody was watching you. So
like you could just feel something watching you. You know, like the one house that I grew up in, I will say it was the house. It was outside, I did not feel that, but inside the house, this sheer terror, this terror. Like if I was at home by myself, I would be going out and taking in all our dogs. We had like outdoor dogs and stuff like that. I would bring them all into my bedroom. We had cats too. You know, I'd be bringing all these animals into my bedroom because I was just terrified to be in that house. It was that's a house that I had a shadow being that I've had floating over me. You know, there was something going on there, and it wasn't just me that had experiences. It was my one sister, my mom had multiple experiences in that house, and my dad had, you know, he only ever told me one thing, never really said anything else, but it was one thing where something disappeared and then just reappeared. You know, like he was looking for hours and hours for this file folder, like a manila file folder, and looking like he was late for work. He was 2 hours late because he's sitting there looking for this, and then something caught the corner of his eye, and laying on the armchair, you know, like a dark blue armchair, is this file folder just sitting there now, you know, and there's no way that it was there before. It just kind of manifested or appeared, like it was gone somewhere else, and it just manifested at this location. And my dad's not one to make up or tell stories at all, so it's like, okay, you know, I can believe that.
yeah, things go like I just started a TikTok channel, not to plug it or anything, because I don't know that I'm going to keep it, but like I had this weird thing when I was in the Air Force for 8 years, and there was a couple things that happened that I called up an old buddy of mine that was a close friend of mine, and he didn't remember who it was. And then I texted another buddy who had been featured in like the news on the cover of the newspaper. He went to a baseball game with me. He traveled with me all kind of, you know, everywhere. And I texted him as well, and I said, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?" And he he was like, "Who is this?" And I said, "This is Brad." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." Like both guys didn't have any recollection of who I was, which is very strange. Yeah.
And where did you know them from? Like, was it like, how did you know these?
It was both were Air Force. Both, you know, like one guy, we were at tech school together. When you get out of the basic training, they send you to a tech school to learn your job.
Okay.
And so it was like dorm, it was like college kind of. And me and that guy would go to New York. We were stationed in Maryland, and we would go to, like, on the weekends, we'd go to party in Baltimore. We'd go to party in New York. We'd go to party in Jersey, Philadelphia, all over the place. We even like the same girl. There was even an event where we like stayed in the bed with this same girl before. So like there's all these different things that like he couldn't have not remembered me, right? And then our next assignment was together in Turkey. So we spent 15 months together in Turkey. He picked me up from the airport. So like, and I called him up one day and I said, "Hey man, like yeah, that's what I'm saying, Justin. That's exactly right. You know the people. There's acquaintances, like, you know, people. You go out and hang out with people, and there's groups that you might know their names, but you forget them until somebody says it later on in the future. But this guy was like somebody that traveled everywhere with me. In Turkey, we went on a 10-hour trip to the beach, and we stayed in the same hotel room for like the whole weekend. There was another incident, but I don't want to say that on air, but there was a it's like, you cannot not remember me. So I asked him these questions. I'm like, "Do you remember going to such and such?" "Yeah." And I go, "Okay, do you remember being stationed at such and such?" "Yeah." "Do you remember going there?" "Yeah." "You don't remember me being there?" And he goes, "No, I'm sorry, man. I've been in the Air Force for 20 years now. run into a lot of people, and I'm just like, there's no way the guy could not remember me, right? And then the other guy, I have a picture in my office right here on the wall. The other guy was more recently stationed with me in like 2010, and we worked together for 2 years on the same staff, sat next to each other, and we traveled together. And like I said, we went to a baseball game in Tampa. I'm a Tampa Bay Rays fan, and it was like the playoffs. So we got pictured. We were on the front page of the paper. He's not in that photo anymore. So
okay. He was in the photo, but now he's not in the photo anymore.
Yes. Yeah, and it, like, I'm being sprayed with champagne. We were both being sprayed with champagne in that picture, and he's not in that photo anymore, dude.
And it's just you now. Like, what?
So
that is glitch in the matrix stuff. So that's glitch in the
I shared that story on TikTok, right? And then a friend of mine, one of my best friends in Tampa, when I was stationed in Tampa, reached out to me yesterday, and we talked and he's on this exact same path as me. So everything I was saying, he was like, I totally get it, dude. He's like, so we even had to compare stories to see if our stories matched on how we met and everything. And he was like, they were a little bit off. So like, I think there's like some timeline thing where if you vibrate to a higher level or something, because he's on that same, like, he feels like he's on the same awakening, vibration, raising your vibrations and kind of timeline jumping, if you will. And so we talked for 4 hours yesterday, man, on FaceTime, because we hadn't talked in many years. But I introduced him to his wife. I was the godfather of his kids. So like, he still remembers me. So that's it. That's good. But like, some people don't, which is interesting to me.
Wow. And it's kind of funny because I don't want to blame it on this, but a lot of times my wife and I get into arguments because she's like, that's not how things happened. And I'm like, yeah, this is exactly how I remember it. And she's like, no, this happened this way. We have these arguments, and I'm like, okay, it must have. So maybe I could tell her that I'm just timeline jumping. That's just it. I'm from a different. I do
it with my mom too.
It could be. It really could be.
Well, I do it with my mom. I would be like, you remember when I used to do this? And she goes, no. Or I'll say, you used to do this. And she goes, no, I didn't. I never do that. And I say, yes, you did. And like, we will sit there and argue to the death. Like, and it's just like, I just think that things change, man. Like, things different. What kind of people have made you?
Yes.
What kind of people have you made angry? Going after the whole, dude, everybody. It's hard to talk to anybody about this kind of stuff. Even people who are like-minded sometimes is even hard to talk to.
Now, do you believe that it might be exemplified because of the location of area that you're living? Because are you still near the 33rd?
Yeah.
Do you feel that might actually amplify things?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think it could be, for sure. But I think it's like a mindset. It's like, I don't really know how to describe it. I mean, most people who listen to these kind of shows probably get what I'm trying to say. It's because so when I say it's hard to explain, it's always hard for me to explain it because I don't know how to put it into words a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like how I feel about things. So this is therapeutic, actually talking to people and trying to get this stuff out, because I'm very, like, in our brains, we can see things, like we can map everything out, but it's harder to talk about it.
It's completely. I know we were saying that. It's sometimes it's so much easier. But it's like you try to pass it on to someone, and you're like, I got nothing. It's like, and so I had a glitch in the matrix type of story that happened recently. So I kind of started really getting into it, and I really wanted to actually make a documentary on it. I wanted to track down people who wanted to tell their story and go from there and interview them on here and just kind of put it all together, and then maybe talk to people who had an idea of what really these glitch in the matrix are. It never really panned out because a lot of people don't want to talk about it. They'll post these stories on Reddit, and then they just want to leave it at that. But while I was doing this, I decided that, okay, let me undertake this. I was taking my dog out for a walk, and I walked into this park. This park is a square park, and I'm sorry if I'm boring all my viewers because I've told this a couple of times. It's a square park, okay, and you enter in on the corner. So I entered in on one corner and walked diagonally around, like you walk to the center and you kind of walk around the gazebo in the middle and you exit. And it's not big. Like this park is maybe, 150 feet by 150 feet, or maybe even 200 feet or something like that. It's not big at all. So walking, I'm out walking. I walk my dog through the park, continue on to this other section. But when I come back, I enter on the same part that I exited. I walk to this very first park bench. It's just like, I just kind of like enter on the diagonal, walk a little bit, sit on the park bench. When I'm sitting on this park bench, I start going, speaking of TikTok, I'm like, go on my phone on TikTok and I'm kind of scrolling through. And behind me is a truck filling up the propane tanks at the hotel behind me. And so it was kind of like an anchor point. And I'm like, okay, I've wasted enough time and been here like 5-10 minutes going on TikTok. Like, let's go. My dog at that point was maybe like 3 months old. And so I'm keeping an eye. I'm watching her, but out of my peripheral, I know where I'm at. I can see the exits, so I just walk past the first exit. But I have to take the second exit. So I walk past the first one. As I'm walking in between those two exits, there's some people talking. I hear them talking. I can see them talking. And then I hit to the next exit. And I start walking down this pathway towards it. And I can see the houses beyond it. And I know these houses because that's, I've walked this many, many times. I look up then, and this time I make like a definitive, like I'm not watching my dog. I look up, and when I do, I get queasy, dizzy, my knees almost buckle, and next thing I know, I'm standing at the other exit. So I came in on the one. I came on the one. I passed the first. I went to the second, but now I'm at the third. It was like instantaneous. I'm standing there, and there's a church right beside that. It's not hard to. Like if you're walking out of a peripheral, you're going to see this church because they're huge. And all of a sudden I'm standing at this exit, the wrong exit. And I'm like, what just happened? I took out my phone. I'm videoing this after the fact though. And I'm like, this is where I was. This is where I walked. This is the bench I sat. This is the exit I was supposed to take, but this is where I'm at. And it was really crazy. It was just this, it took me a little bit to get my feet back, my stomach to settle a little bit. Cause it was like this instantaneous, just zapped over to this other area. It was crazy.
It reminds me of like when people fly through the Bermuda Triangle and they get, they've had this like missing time or like, it goes, they have this weird feeling and then they get through what, I think I know we all vibrate, right? We vibrate at our core, we vibrate at the atoms, and we have this energy field around us. And I think just like a hard drive, you ever defragmented a hard drive? Like,
yes.
You know how it has these little spaces in it?
Yeah.
I feel like Justin says you got abducted. I don't know, man. But I think that somebody can like how when you wave a magnet over a hard drive, it'll scramble it. Yeah. I think that certain magnetic energies has that capability as well to like put us like to alter our, to kind of jar our hard drive a little bit. And so I think that's what happens when a lot of times when people get abducted. I'm not saying you did, but I'm just saying like a lot of times there's this like, whoa, what happened? That's like I'm rewatching Close Encounters of the Third Kind again, and it's just fresh on the brain. So that's why I'm talking about this. But it has that like there's this energy that can be like, that energy when you wave two magnets around each other and you can feel that energy in between. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Is that what it kind of felt like?
I would have to say possibly. I would definitely have to say possibly. It was just it was definitely shock. Like, what am I doing here? What is going on? I don't think there was any missing time, but it was definitely some sort of glitch in my brain. It was dizzy because it was as if the whole world shifted on me. It felt like everything shifted, and also to note the people shifted as well. So those people that were in that one, when I said I passed them, they moved as well. Though that that truck that was filling up the gas, the propane gas at the hotel, stayed in the same. It didn't move. So that's why I call it my anchor. I'm like, that was the anchor point. What did Justin say here? Did it feel like you crashed back into your body? It very much could have been. It felt like I was on one of those crazy spinning machine, like like I'm at the amusement park and it's just spinning. And, I've been on that that's what it felt like. It felt like I was in a centrifuge. And instead of being on the exit I should be at, I'm at this other exit.
I get this this thought. I watched Skinwalker Ranch, but I don't watch. I watch for entertainment purposes, just to kind of see what they're doing, because they like to show things a lot of times in these kind of shows. They like to point things out that they do.
Yeah.
Well, they mentioned how the electromagnetic energy in this particular area where these like vortexes are a little bit separated. Like the electric and the magnetic fields come close, but they don't touch, which leaves a little gap. And then, so like a split second in that gap can be like a ton of time, like many years or something like that. And that's what they were describing, is how, so if something to us feels like a split second, it might have been like something that happened where there was like a gateway in that electromagnetic field. Because I think that's the zipper of reality, is the electromagnetic field. And so I think that if it's a little separated and it's not actually touching, that's when these energies can like shoot things in and out. And so that's
we can fall through at those points almost in a way, per se.
Yeah. Wow. So I had a similar, not really, I don't know what to call it. In 2020, I go outside and it was like February, and I always start doing my lawn around February. I start like, putting out the weed and feed and all the stuff that, make the lawn look good, because once the spring hits, I want it to be nice and green. Right. So I get outside, and just like clockwork, I lived in the same house for like 8 years. I started to mess with the lawn, but I noticed that the lawn was like dirt. It was like patches everywhere. It was like dirt everywhere. And I was like, what in the world? It looked like, like somebody had like lit the grass on fire, and it just evaporated, and there's just now dirt there. So, and I just remember when I was throwing out seed to try to fix that. Yeah. And there was this heavy feeling that I got, and I can never describe it, obviously. But it's this weird feeling that I got that was like something major just happened. Right. And this was February 2020. And then obviously March 2020, all these crazy things started to happen right after that. But it was like, there was something similar, like there was a shift or something, and there was a dizziness. It was like I could feel something. And I went in and I told my wife, I was like, something weird just happened. I don't know how to describe it, but it was like, the sky was like cloudy. It was dark. And I was like, something weird happened, and I don't know what it was. And it still feels like the weirdest thing that ever happened to me. But could have been, missing time as well. I got family members who've been abducted, dude. I got 2 cousins that keep getting abducted, and their little half sister keeps getting abducted. So
keeps getting abducted, like.
Yep. Yeah, one of them was on my podcast. Her name is Emily. She has a twin sister, and then she has a half sister that's not related to me at all. So her dad is my great uncle, and so we're related. But so it must be a relationship on their mom's side too, that they keep the bloodline keeps getting abducted, because they have like tons of paranormal stuff that happen in their lives. But so, which is interesting. But they talk about the same stuff, by the way. That's why I brought them up. They talk about like this weird, it was like weird, like something they shifted. They were kind of dizzy, you know what I mean? And then missing time. Did you have missing time?
I don't think I had any missing time. Though I wasn't really paying attention. I don't think there was any missing time, but I wasn't paying attention to the time at that point. If it was missing time, it wasn't enough to be significant that after the fact that I was like, hey, where did that hour go? It, could have been 10 minutes, and which would have been inconsequential to me. Interesting. And when they said they had these multiple abductions, is it like the sense of foreboding, evil, or friendliness, or anything like that?
Yeah, evil. I even asked my cousin, like, I paused it. I paused the recording and I was like, "Hey, can I ask you something off air
Yeah, yeah,
before I
yeah.
ask it on air?" And she was like, "Yeah." And it was just like I was like, "Did you have some sort of a miscarriage after?" And she said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Interesting." There's like always a tie into that too, because you know, abductions usually, especially of women, usually
Yeah.
lead to some sort of a miscarriage, and that's typically because, and they'll eventually be abducted again and be shown their child, right? The child that they had that was taken from them and
Yep.
turned into a hybrid.
So I have a another friend actually said he was going to come on. Raphael Skitz Lugo. He's an artist. He makes music, and he's had those experiences where he's multiply he's been abducted multiple times, and now it seems that his son has been as well. So it's kind of like generational, and he talks about being presented on one of the ships with a child, and he knew it was his. It was like it was implied that this is your child, but there's like this coldness. It's not
It's not
completely
loving.
human.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and but they wanted, the reason why it's presented to him is to give him the human touch. There's something magical about the human touch, and that which goes into, if we're talking about 2020, about the 6 foot rule, keep everybody socially distanced. There's a reason why. It's to reduce the human interaction, the human touch, because there you say we're vibrational, and I think we actually need each and every one of us. We have to be in contact.
Yeah,
uh
I think so too.
Justin's asking a question: do they have the RH blood type?
I've heard the RH blood. It's like RH negative, right, or something like that.
I
I,
believe
I
so.
don't
I
I
believe
don't
so.
know anybody personally that has that blood type, and I never even heard of it, to be honest with you, until like a couple months ago. But I haven't looked into it. I don't know what it even.
I
I mean, all I know is I've never heard of RH. I've heard of A and O and all that stuff. I've never heard of
Yeah,
RH until recently.
it's very, very a small percentage. And there's a friend that lives in Merida, which is just about an hour and a half away. She was just posting that she's RH and that the mosquitoes don't touch her. Like she said she can count on her hands how many times she's been bitten by mosquitoes throughout her life. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, O positive people, I think, is the same way. So I don't. I think O is like a universal
Yeah.
donor. So I do
Yes.
know the
I,
O
I think
type.
I think O positive is the act, or O negative. I think O negative is the actual universal
Oh,
donor.
okay, there you go.
I'm
O negative.
I am
Yeah.
I am O positive myself.
Are you?
Because I know I
But
can
that's
donate.
interesting.
What? Sorry.
I don't even mean to interrupt you. I said that's interesting, right? I mean, it's like you've had a lot of things happen to you, right? And it's
True.
like,
True. Oh, yeah. So Justin's saying, yeah, O negative. I'll give the gift of life if needed. So yeah, Justin's saying that is correct. Yeah, the O negative is, yeah, and I'm O positive. Yeah, and you're saying, like, yeah, I have had numerous experiences. And I would say, like, something's crazy for me is, and I tell my viewers about this all the time, is that hang on, before I go on, I'm RH negative and Skeeters love me. Diana is hilarious. Diana's hilarious. But that's interesting, Diana. RH negative are the missing rhesus gene. Okay, interesting. Oh, and Joanna, are you RH negative as well? That's interesting. So Shamama is a fantastic friend of mine. She's like, I would say medicine woman. That's what I would classify her as, a
Mhm.
medicine woman, elder, back in Canada. Fantastic lady. So yes, she is RH negative as well, and she's had a ton of experiences that I know too.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, I know, right? I was saying that I would say, if anything, I have the gift of the dreams. My
Hmm.
dreams are something that are beyond. I don't know. They're just beyond, like, and Okay, I'll tell you a quick story here. So I was reading about this watching a podcast. I think it might have been Tony's actually confessionals when he had someone on there, and they were talking about being abducted and that they've had dreams of being abducted, and they believe that these dreams are actually like real, like they're screen memories that you believe it's a dream, but it's an actual abduction. And they explained this dream, and it was almost identical to a dream that I had of being abducted. And so I decided, I'm like, because I do write down, well, I haven't for the past year, but I do document all my dreams. And I was looking for this one in particular. When I was scrolling through, I found something else though. And this is, and again, I've talked about this many times. I found this dream that was of an event that already happened. But this dream was years prior. So I compared the dates, and it was 4 years to the day that this actually happened. I had a very in-depth discussion with a lady at a church where she was arguing with me, and it was a very specific topic. And in my dream, it went like exactly the way it did in real life, and I'm wondering, like, did I dream the future, or did I have this dream and then kind of like manifest this, or what happened? I told my wife, because my wife was there at this event, and so she was living proof of that this event actually happened. And I asked her, like, when did this happen? She's like, oh, that was in February. I'm like, yes, but when in February? So she gave me the date, and I said, take a look at this. And I show her my my dream journal with the date written down, and 4 years before where this happened. So crazy.
I have this theory.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm redheaded, as you can tell from the beard. Oh, I'm not really redheaded. I was born with bleached blonde hair. My hair was super white.
Okay.
And I have both of me and my brothers, we all look exactly the same now. We both have red beards. People can't tell us apart. But we have this MC1R. Let me make sure I'm saying it right. MC1R mutated gene. Every redhead has it. It prevents people from being sedated, right? It prevents
Really?
people who
Okay.
have that gene from being sedated, which is very interesting, because anytime I've ever had like hey Truth, how you doing? Every time I've ever had like sedation, like I don't really go into full sedation. They have to like strap me down and put like propofol in me, all this other stuff.
Jeez.
And it's like this crazy, like I can't be put to sleep, which is interesting because I have a show called The Awakened Podcast, right? Like where I can't be sedated, I can't go to sleep. But redhead people, and also I have this guy who I call a shaman. He's got these long red beard and long red hair. We talk about this a lot. He said he has the same thing, and his daughter has the same thing. They can't be sedated, and they have a high tolerance for pain. So like I've had cavities filled before, and the dentist would numb me up, and I feel everything still, and they think I'm lying. But
Yeah.
there's another interesting correlation that I found, and I asked him if he had the same thing. Pointy heads. We have like a pointy head for some reason. And everybody I've asked who are like awake, or quote unquote awake, or spiritually enlightened or something, they all have that same point to their head. Do you have a pointy head at the top, at the very top?
I don't know. I have a bit of I have the bald spot, the Friar Tuck bald spot, but I don't know if I have a pointy head.
No, but it literally looks like a shark's fin, almost like it's pointy at the top. And
nope. I don't.
And it might just be a redhead thing, because usually I'm asking redheads that, which is interesting. But that's an interesting thought too, man. It's like there has to be some, and I think that I'm sorry to take it back to the bloodline stuff, but I think that there's a reason why 23andMe and all that stuff exists. Like I think it's just thank you. I don't really have much stuff on there right now. I'm going to start posting, I promise. But Truth says just sub to your channel. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Anyways, I forgot what I was saying.
23andMe.
Yeah, 23andMe. I think it's somebody.
okay.
I think somebody's looking for bloodlines. Is what I think. Is what I really think is going on.
I agree completely. And guess who just bought Ancestry.com?
Yes. Yeah.
Was it at BlackRock? Just purchased. They own all your DNA.
Mormons started it.
Really?
Mormons started it, yeah. Which is a whole nother. I had this girl named Heidi Love from the Unfiltered Rise podcast on, and she was enlightening me with all that information. So it's pretty interesting.
And I agree with you totally. I think they are looking for some bloodline or some people or something. Like I agree totally. And I always wanted to do one of those tests. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do it. And I never did. And my sister had bought some for my parents. And my parents are weird, they're completely indoctrinated in many ways, but in other ways they're not. Like there's some random things they're like, oh, we don't want to do that. We don't want to give them our our DNA or something like that. And I'm like, what? At that point I was like, what? Why not? But now I'm like, well, yeah, I wouldn't want to do that either.
Do you have a feeling? I mean, do you have this? And I think Justin mentioned it earlier. Do you ever get this feeling like you're alone in the way you think, like around people who are close to you?
All the time.
Yeah.
I don't really talk to much of my family much anymore. It's isolating. It's very isolating. And I would say, like, having this podcast, even sometimes like I do have some really enlightening conversations, but I would say that sometimes I even still hold back on what I really know. I haven't jumped too much in the conspiracy pool. I mean, no, I'm in it, but I haven't brought it up, kind of thing. It's there's a lot of things that there's things that I know. I would say there's a lot of things that I know, and then there's a lot of things that I believe. And I maybe one day I'm going to make like a sub channel, a secondary channel, and be like, like this is, we're going deep. We're going deep into this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the same way. There's definitely a line I won't cross.
Yeah.
But I have gone further, right? It's like, I go way deeper on some of this stuff, and I'm just always like, there's also a balance when you're talking about this kind of stuff, but you're putting your thoughts out there, obviously, and not everything should be shared, and it's like, there's tons of like-minded people in the comments right now, I would imagine, but also if you say one little thing that crosses a line religiously or anything like that, it could take it to a different place, and then they all of a sudden they don't want to listen to you anymore. So it's a balance you have to,
you got it's a fine line, and unless you get really big, such as like Sam Tripoli from Tinfoil Hats,
Right, yeah.
He says everything. He just puts it out there, and God bless his soul, that he does that. I'm very, I subscribe to a lot of his thinking, a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But you could tell there's lines he won't cross too, because he'll have to do this dance when he starts talking about a certain subject to make sure that people are very clear about how he feels and what he thinks about stuff. And that's how most people are. He's just a little bit braver than there's a bunch of people who are braver than I am. I'll put it that way.
Me too, 100%. Yeah. I'm going to share that the link once again, but this conversation we're having is fantastic. I think everybody's actually enjoying this conversation. But if anybody has anything they want to share, by all means, please, please come on and tell us any of your experiences, any of your stories. But no, this is. I think, Brad, you and I have we're pretty like-minded on many things. Yeah, it's kind of like I do keep a filter on. I would say, I keep that filter on, and just a taste of something, like for some people, like, I'm listening to the book, The Real Anthony Fauci. I think that's a read that everybody needs to do, because we're all told many things on the mainstream media. We're all broadcasted. I think we're talking about this before, the programming, the broadcasting, television. It's, they keep repeating it. It is part of brainwashing, where they just keep repeating something over and over. And I think it's after 2 weeks, or is it 2 months? 2 weeks, could be 2 weeks of, repetitive telling of something, that people will start to believe it. And that's what happens. And it's hard, because I get caught up in it still too, to this day. There's things I get caught up on. And then it's like, oh shit, I gotta do my own research, listen to both sides, and then find the facts, find the truth.
I've learned lately to just ignore everything. And I don't even follow politics. People keep asking me my thoughts on the Trump assassination attempt, and I'm like, I don't have one. And I know people don't like that because people want to know what, you know, do you think it's a conspiracy? Do you think it's this? And I go, I don't know. I think that eventually you get to a point where what does it matter? Like, why would I put my energy towards it? Right.
Yeah.
If it's not something that's directly affecting my energy personally around me in my life, then why would I put my energy towards it? And it goes into this whole, like, I could go into this whole deep thing about like I really think that this is some kind of a holographic matrix reality that we're living in, right? And it's like I don't want to take it there all the time, but that's kind of what
Yep.
it just feels like. That it just feels like it's a test
Like,
or something, right? Or it's like
I agree. Like, you know, like these manifestations, like how, you know, if you put your thoughts to something, you can actually manifest things. And
yes.
has anybody do you have any manifestation stories? Have you ever manifested something that is like,
Dude, look at my fucking whole life. Excuse my language. My whole life is a manifestation, dude. Like, I listen, man. The things that I've done in my life, if I sat here and told everybody, nobody would believe it. I mean, nobody would believe it. I came from a trailer park. I used to live in the ghetto, right? I used to live in low income apartments. And then we moved into the quarters, which were quarter houses. Then we moved into down a dirt road in a trailer park. Then we moved to a another dirt road with in a double wide trailer, and that's where I grew up my whole life. But in no formal education when I was in the Air Force, but then I did something in the Air Force that would shock people if I told people. And it's like I got to do things like have dinner with kings and different. I can't describe it on here, but 'cause I used to have this really cool job in the Air Force, and I got to travel a lot. And then after I got out of the military, then it became like everything. It's like no matter what I put my mind to, it succeeds. And I just like, this podcast, like doing a podcast and stuff, or it just feels like it's unstoppable what you can manifest. But I think it's dangerous too. You know, I think that it's like I think it's dangerous to manifest too much without like if you try to
yes,
manifest for yourself, then it can be dangerous. But
yeah,
if you manifest in the you know for others, it's not really manifesting. It's like when you have this insane amount of like love for other people, give things away, have this gratitude for everything you have in life. Because everything that's ever happened to me, I've been super you know, I've been super grateful for. I've had a lot of gratitude for,
yeah,
and I feel like I keep getting rewarded with that. And it's like this formula that I'm in that keeps manifesting things. Like I have this big, beautiful house on 4 acres of land, and I talk about it on my show sometimes. But I was having a conversation again in between yards, just like my mom was with that lady. And my neighbor is a retired judge, and which just goes to show you the kind of company I'm around, right? And it's like I was telling her, I was like, man, I was just like, I grew up in a, you know, trailer park. I'm just so happy to be here, living in this nice place. And I was like, I get to look out my backyard and see deer in the mornings. And as I wave my arm, this was in the middle of the day, a deer
yeah.
walks out. And it's like,
What?
what kind of like reality am I living in where I can just say things and they appear? Like that's the kind of stuff I'm kind of talking about. It's like
Yeah.
some of the stuff that happens in my life doesn't make sense. Even not just in my life, but in people who are connected to me. My mom was in a plane crash and she survived. That kind of stuff. Like,
What?
yeah, well,
Jeez.
it was a plane crash in Jacksonville in the river. But I think it's important that like if you have something, if you have too much of something, it's
Mhm.
important to give it away. I really do. Like I have a ton of baseball cards around this office, and I give them away all the time because I feel like I don't deserve to have things. Like I've sabotaged my own life because I don't want to do better than my family, or I don't want to do better than my friends. I don't want people to think I'm better than them in any way. And so I think there's this like you can anything you want if you hyper focus on it, if you put it in your mind, if you see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hands.
Yep.
And if you
Yeah.
hyper focus on it, but again, as long as you have God's will, you know, in mind, as long as it lines up with God's will, I think you can get what you want, you know, without having too much, you know.
Yeah.
Like I still drive the same truck for that I've been driving for 20 years. And so, you know, I try not to get too ahead of my skis on like, you know, having things and owning things because none of it means anything, you know.
Yep.
I wear t-shirts and basketball shorts every day. So I'm not trying to
I
have
think that's awesome. It's you know,
yeah,
just you're keeping it real is what you're doing. And it's I think it's really important that we do that kind of thing. We should definitely just, yeah, live with what you need. Like, all these people living in excess, I think is really causing a lot of negativity, and it's not allowing the energy to flow, because you're stopping everything when it comes in and it's not continuing. You should allow it to come in and continue out, so it can be replaced with everything else. With manifestation, I've also wondered sometimes, is it maybe connected to prediction, being able to predict the future? You say, oh, I can see all these beautiful deer. Now, did you subconsciously know that the deer was going to be there, so you subconsciously were able to say that at the same time? Is that a possibility as well?
I think that's interesting. I think that is a possibility. Because I think that again, if you think of it in like the holographic reality that we live in, I think that everything is like already coded. If you look at it as in terms of code, right?
Okay.
By the way, how I feel about that doesn't it's still, there's still a creator. There's still a God, the God of light and love and energy. Like that God still exists, right? So
I agree.
So when I talk about the holographic reality, I'm talking about something that he created. But I think that these things are like, they already exist in the world. Like, it's like a video game, how someone codes a tree or a rock in a video game, right? They still are there, but you don't, like, I was driving to Boston one time with my little brother, and I told him, I was like, I feel like things don't render. Your reality doesn't render until you get into a place, almost like a video game, right? It's like,
yeah. I've heard that theory before too. Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
like you close the door outside to the outside world, and it just almost stops, doesn't exist.
yeah, and that goes to the quantum entanglement theory a little bit too. It's like, or Schrodinger's cat, or whatever you want to talk about. I mean, but it just feels like these parts are there, and they're there subconsciously or something, and then you render through your eyes. You render things well in advance, if that makes any sense, man. I don't know. It's so hard to explain how I think about things, but
I agree. It's like, I had this, and it's kind of funny. You're talking about, let's say this is a matrix of sorts. I had a dream recently where I discussed that. There was a woman who was freaking out about something, and I said, we just live in a matrix. This is what it is. And she's like, well, then what's real? And I said, the dreamer is what's real. The dreamer is the creator. They're the ones who create the reality. It's so, and I was the dreamer, of course. So I said, I'm the creator of this reality, because what I see and what I think and what I, manifest is what I create.
Yes, we have all the, well, that's what I was trying to say. You have all the code, and we're like the coders as we're going along. We're just like, like in our subconscious mind, or whatever you want to say, where we're creating this code as we go along. And so, yeah, I mean, I just was tied up in a lot of that kind of stuff, like the FBI and like all these things with Trump and all this stuff. And I just realized that, like, man, all this stuff is intended to distract us and lower our energy. And I think that there are evil forces that are trying to lower our energy, right? So I think that we have to be careful. But with the manifestation stuff, I think that anytime you get anything in life, like if you ask for it and it's for self-purpose, I think that you have to sacrifice something. I really believe that.
Like an exchange. Someone had posted something like that as well. Like, is there it's kind of like an exchange. And I believe so. I believe that there is a, here we go. I think it was, wonder if manifesting comes through the exchange of something unknown, kind of like alchemy, that is, that's like alchemy, you giving up something of equal value for this. And I'm trying to think that, because like I had one very extreme manifestation where I took my Reiki. So I'm a Reiki master. And when I was taking my first degree Reiki, my instructor was from Costa Rica. And I decided at that point that I was going to go to Costa Rica, and I was going through some really financial hardships at that time. So there was no possible way I could do it. that night I went out with some friends and they were like, well, let's go. We should plan on going somewhere. And I said, let's go to Costa Rica. And they were like, no, let's go somewhere else. And I said, well, I'm going to Costa Rica. I don't know how I'm doing, but I'm going to Costa Rica. So 2 weeks later, to the day, I was Joanne, the medicine woman that's in the chat there. I was at her sweat lodge, and we were sending off a friend of ours. She was going away on vacation she was going away for a couple of months to, I think it was North Carolina. And I'd lie if I say I wasn't jealous, because I was jealous a little bit. So I'm like, I really want to go somewhere. But I was like, I'm happy for her, of course. And at the end of the sweat lodge, I went out to my truck. I grabbed my cell phone. There was an email, and the subject line of the email said Costa Rica. And I was like, what? And it was an old client of mine that I used to do work for, who said, hey, I don't know if you're interested, but, I moved to Costa Rica, and, I would love to fly you down, pay for everything, if you could come do some work at my house. And like, you do the labor, you design everything that needs to be done, but I'll pay for everything. So that was my trip to Costa Rica that I manifested, which is just crazy.
I think where you set your antenna to, where attention goes, energy flows. Everybody's heard that.
Yeah.
But once you set your antenna to it and you walk forward towards something, you can't just stand there and things happen to you. You have to walk towards that goal. And as you walk towards the goal, the energy starts to flow around you like a wave. And then you leave a wake behind you. And in that wake, these things start coming to you like a magnet, right? Like attracts like. So if you have this, you told an amazing story just now. I was on Stranger Things, and a similar thing happened to me, the show Stranger Things. I met this girl, and it was just like one thing led to another. And I was an extra. I wasn't like, I didn't have a big, Hollywood roles and everything like that. Yeah.
Cool.
But it was just like something that I was like, it was a brief moment of something I really wanted to do. I was like, that'd be super cool if I could do this. And then my mind just shifted to that. And then everything just started, like, I ran into a guy at the store, and he just happened to be on the film crew of it. And then like, I met the girl, and she was like, oh yeah, you can be on the show. And she was on the show as well. She's like, here's how you do it. And so then it's hard to get on the show. It's not like it's easy. And so like one thing led to another, ended up not only getting there, but it was like this bizarre thing that had to happen where I was out of money. Cause as a freelancer, we live weird checks come in. Like you come in and like, they don't come every other Friday. They come like Tuesdays or Thursdays sometimes. So I was like, I didn't have any money, and it was 6 hours to Atlanta. And as I started my journey, I didn't realize I didn't have any money, but it was like 7:00 at night, and I got about 2 hours away from my house, and I was out of gas and no money, and I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. So I called my bank, and I knew there was a check waiting to be processed, right, for like a bunch of money. And so I called my bank, and it just so happened, it was 7:00. Just so happened that the lady who could do that was still there at the bank. She processed the check.
That's
through.
Random. Yes.
Right. She processed the check through. I ended up going, and I ended up filming the show. But when I was there, like there was another moment where I got to be like in front of the camera, and they would call my name, like, action. Okay, Brad, and then you do your part. And it was like, so these guys that had done it professionally were like, how the hell did you do that, dude? Like, we've been doing this for like 10 years now, and I've never had that much screen time or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know, but my point is like,
what season are you in? I'm curious. I'm like, I gotta watch this.
It was season 3, episode 6 at the beginning, and this fair scene, but
369, that's Secrets of the Universe, Tesla. Yes,
episode 3. That's true. But it was
episode. You said season 3, episode 6. Now where's the 9? Yeah. At the 9-minute mark. At the 9-minute mark. Yeah.
But the point of saying that is it's like I became hyper focused on that for like 2 months, and like I was growing my beard out long and my hair out long because you had to be on the show. Okay. So I was like really focused on it. And because my antenna was tuned to that, then things started happening to me, how they would. And then I had this other story, if you don't mind if I share real quick.
Oh, please. Yes.
I coached Little League Baseball. I'm a big Tampa Bay Rays fan. We have this Hispanic player, this Mexican-born player named Jonathan Aranda on the team, and he's like in the minor leagues, and he comes up to the pros a little bit. Anyways, I'm a baseball card salesman as well on eBay, right? So like I buy and sell baseball cards. But so I had this card, and I coached Little League baseball, and had this Mexican kid on my team. His family was Mexican, and so like I go up to him and I said, "Hey kid, I got a card for you," and I gave him one of these like really rare autographed cards of Jonathan. I said, "Hey man, he's from Mexico as well. He plays for the Mexican national team." And he was like, "Oh," he was so happy. But I gave away something, right? And this is kind of goes to what I was trying to tell you a while ago, where I didn't have this intent to manifest. But later on that night, I sold a baseball card to Jonathan's dad. Okay. And so I ended up having this friendship with Jonathan's dad through eBay. And then we were invited to like a baseball game. We got to sit with the families and all this stuff. And we got all this autographed memorabilia from his son. But that was an example of living God's will in a way to manifest, right? It's like, I didn't expect anything in return. I gave that kid something out of the goodness of my heart. And I didn't want anything in return, but God already knew what I wanted and put Jonathan's dad on my path. And now I got something 10 times in return. I got autographed baseball bats and cards and hats and everything and baseballs. So my point is like, as long as you have this insane amount of love and like you really want to do it for somebody, like and not expect anything at all, that's when things start happening to you. Because like I can't explain anything in my life, houses, anything I've ever done. It just feels like it came to me somehow, and I don't know what that's even about, but it just happens, man. Once you tune your antenna, like you said with Costa Rica, everything was like boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, you're in Costa Rica.
It was, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy like that. It's and that is a fantastic, it was just kind of, how things just line up, that's really interesting, how things just kind of, how they just work. My father-in-law, and I would say lately I've been, a little stressed. I would say maybe the last year I've been living under some stress. So maybe this magic has kind of gone away a little bit. But, my father-in-law used to always say, "Oh, it's the magical world of rye," or the magic world of rye. It just, because I would manifest everything and anything. And it was just, these crazy things would happen to me. I'd like run into people and have these amazing experiences because just right place, right time, and just allowing it to happen.
Yeah, dude, I'm over here shaking my head a lot. And yeah. That same stuff happens to me. I run into people in Turkey at a beach in Turkey that grew up in my hometown of 1,200 people. Or it's weird, man. I'll run into people at Disney. I'll run into people. It's so strange, man. Like the world doesn't make any sense to me at all.
It doesn't. So I have a story very similar to that of your Turkey story. I'm in the middle of in the ocean on a little island off the coast of Thailand, and I have a visa there. I'm there for a bit, and I was like, it'd be great to work here, to work at one of the bars, because there's a lot of like foreigners who work at the bars there, and I'm like, yeah, I would love to do that. So I walk over to one of the owners and the boss, and I'm like, hey, can I work here? He's like, well, I don't really know. His best friend's sitting beside him, and I'm wearing a Canadian rugby jersey, and his best friend's from Ireland, and he's like, oh, is that a rugby jersey? You play rugby? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, where did you play rugby in Canada? I said, yeah. Where did you play? I'd say the city. And he's like, oh, I played there too. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's like, which team do you play for? I tell him the team I play for. And he's like, I play for that team too. We start talking. He's good friends with my brother-in-law who plays on the same team. He knows me. He goes to the owner. He's like, yeah, hire this guy. I got a job just like that then. It's crazy.
It's weird how that works, because I totally know what you feel. It's like, how can that even happen? How is that even possible? I used to be engaged to this girl who was from Jersey. I moved to Tampa. The first night I'm in Tampa, I go to a bar. I'm sitting beside these two guys, and they say they're from Jersey as well. And I go, oh, cool, man. And I said, where about in Jersey? I used to be engaged to this girl from Jersey, and they told me, and it was the same small town as her. And not only that, they were her best friends growing up.
No way.
And I was like, dude, that is so but that happens all the time in my life, all the time. I can't even describe it, like all the time. It seems like it never stops. Like, what does that even mean? Like, how do you run into somebody and you played on this, or he played on the, what did you say? He was playing with your brother-in-law, right?
Yeah, yeah. He played rugby with my brother-in-law. Yeah.
That's crazy. I just did a podcast with the guys from Appalachian Intelligence,
Okay.
and one of the guys on there, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that podcast or not, but
I am not. I am not. I should look them up.
so they go on the confessional sometime as well. They're friends with Tony Merkel, but I did the show and it was supposed to be 3 guys, but the other 2 guys had something to do, so I ended up talking to this one guy, and he said he used to live in South Carolina, and I was like, oh, cool, man, yeah, that's where I'm from. And he said I lived in this one town, or I worked in this one town. I was like, oh, okay, then you might know the town I grew up in. And then he told me like, oh yeah, that's where I lived while I worked in. So he lived in the hometown, and not only that, he lived right beside my brother. So it's like does like is it? It must be energies or something that connects somehow, that connects people at the right time.
It has to be. It has to be. You know, like yeah. That's funny. I've had a ton of these connections, and just right place, right time, and these people are just all connected. You know, sometimes it's like the 7 degrees of separation. Nah, it's much less than that. You know, there's times it's like 3 degrees of separation. It is crazy.
Yeah, Smurfy hit it. It's like
Yep.
it's great when you're on that wave because you feel like nothing can stop you. And yeah, it wasn't this one, it was another one, but it was you're right. It's like that. It's like it feels like nothing can stop you, but it also makes me caution. Like I'm always like, why? What is going on? I'm always questioning, what does it mean? Why am I supposed to see this? Why am I supposed to do that? Why am I supposed to am I supposed to see something? You know, or am I creating this world around me as I go? Like then it becomes too much of a mind-blowing thing for me.
And I think it is that we have to start paying attention. A lot of times we run around this life, this world with blinders on. We're just focused on, okay, I start work at 9 a.m. I got to get up and get ready and drive to work, and I'll listen to the radio when I'm going and just be oblivious to everything else. But if you look around, there's messages, and you know, there's things all around that are meant to reach out to you and to tell you directions, to give you advice. And it's crazy. Like I remember this one time, I was asking for a sign. I'm like, I need a sign about this. And that was in the morning. The afternoon, I'm walking into the shop, and I look up at this billboard, and no word of a lie, it says, if you're looking for a sign, this is it. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, okay, fair enough. That's it's just ridiculous. It was so obvious that it was just that obvious. Yeah.
I was kind of at a point like you, but with the podcasting stuff, I just done the confessionals, right? And I was like, do I want to do this or not? And I happen to have the actor John Voight's email because I met him in 2009, and I took a photo of him with Nancy Reagan, and I sent him the photo. So I happened to email him, and I said, hey, buddy, how you doing? I don't know if you remember me. I took the photo. You got it hanging in your office. You told me about it, blah, blah, blah. I just said, I just want to say hi. That was it. And he called me, right? He picked up the phone and called me, and he was like, hey, yeah, of course I remember you. How you doing? And for like 45 minutes, we talked on the phone. And he told me this story, and I asked him if I could share it. So I'm not breaking any kind. And he also shared it on Tucker Carlson's show one time. Okay. Where he told me he was depressed in the 60s, and he wasn't doing well as an actor, and he was laying on the floor of his apartment, and he said he just was just completely depressed and stressed out. He wasn't a good dad. He was, doing a lot of bad things. And then he said, he yelled out, why is this so hard? And then God said in his ear, he heard the voice of God say, it's supposed to be hard, or something along those lines. And so he said he sat up and was like, what in the world was that? He said it was so real that he was like, what was that? And then then the next day he when he got up, he said he kind of shook that off, and the next day he got up and he said, okay, God, what do you have for me today? And he said he turned on the radio. We started his car, and he turned on the radio, and this song from the movie American in Paris came on, and it was like, it's like the song was like take one step at a time. It was like Stairway to Heaven or something along those lines. It was
Okay.
like take one step at a time on your way to heaven or something like that. And so he took it as a sign, but he said ever since he opened up his mind to that, then everything, his whole world opened up. He became open to the universe. And that's what he was talking about. That's what you're talking about too, is like once you become open to the universe and open to receiving the messages of the universe, the synchronicities, the angel numbers, things like that, then it's like hard to unsee, and that's why it's not a shock to us anymore when we see these things, because we've seen them so much,
Yes.
and that's what happened with him. And that's what he gave me advice as to, I was like, I don't know if I should do this podcast. And he's like, this is your sign that you should, right? It's like, he's like,
This is
take
your sign. Yes,
this
exactly.
phone call as a, he said, if you ever need me on your show, I'd love to come on. And I don't know that he really meant that, but we'll see.
But nonetheless, yeah, it's like,
so cool.
John
Yeah.
Voight, come on over.
Yeah, dude, it's so weird, man. But again, when you open your mind up to that, when you become more enlightened, when you vibrate at a higher level, vibrate at a higher level, that's when I think the world opens up for you. And whoever the spirit guides or whoever's given us these signs get really excited, because when I start sharing these stories with people, like over and over and over again, man, like I this guy that did my gutters, he came to my house and he was just talking about Jesus and God and all this stuff. And we were having a good conversation because I was talking about similar things. And I told him about angel numbers, and he showed me his finger. He's like, check that out, man. And he had the number 222 on it, an angel number. And so we started talking about that. Like, what do you think it means? And he's like, oh, that's a sign that you're on the right path, man. You're doing what you're supposed to do, and you're learning things and this, that, and the other. And I said, yeah, I feel the same way. And the rest of the day, he and I were getting angel numbers everywhere. Like, he pulled up to the next house that he had to go to, and it was like the license plate says 444, or like, he bought a piece of chicken or something and it had $4.44 on it. And it's like over and over, we were both getting synchronicities all day. Like they were happy, whatever the angels, the guides, the spirit guides, the God, whatever, like they were happy that we were sharing this information. So anytime I share this information about like angel numbers and start say, hey, I noticed this and I noticed that, it's like they get really excited that I noticed these things.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow, yeah, it is because I think it's kind of like, once you start getting into that flow, once you start encouraging that flow, it's almost like a muscle. Once you start flexing it and exercising it, or just paying attention to it, it starts becoming more and more active, and you get into the flow. We're all in this river, and perhaps we're on the edges. Some of us are on the edges, caught in eddies, and we're going back and forth, all around. Whereas, if we're getting into this, if we get into the flow and we find that right current, stuff will start happening. It's gonna come together. It's really interesting, and and you're kind of giving me that vibe again, or that boost again that I think I need. I got to start paying more attention. And actually, speaking of paying attention and getting signs, I had it was about a year and a half ago. I had to put my dog down, and I had him for 15 years, and I would say that's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. And the next morning, I couldn't sleep. I swear I could hear him all night. I was out walking on the pier, and I'm like, just give me a sign. Give me a sign that you're here. And of course, I'm in Mexico, so most of everything is in Spanish. There was a woman walking with a hat, or it was a t-shirt or a hat. I think it was a hat, and it said, "I'm sorry, Dad," on it. And I was just like, oh! Like, it was just kind of like this, the sign for me that, he was still there. Like, I'm like, hey, I see that, it's fascinating. It's really, really fascinating.
Same thing that happened to me last year, August of last year. We had to put our dog Penny down, Penny was with us for like 16 years. And it was my wife's dog. She had adopted her when I was over in Iraq in 2007. And so when I came home, she became my dog too. She lived in the apartment with us and everything. And so she just died last year, and my wife was torn up about it. Obviously I was too. But it was my wife's dog. She had more of a special connection to her than I did. Yeah. And my wife was reading a Stephen King book, and in the book later that night, after we put her down, later that night, my wife was reading a Stephen King book, and in the book it said, Penny was a good dog or something along those lines.
Ooh.
It was like,
Ooh.
it was like,
Oh man,
but she said it.
beautiful, but also just like tearjerker as well.
Yeah, but because she said it just came out of nowhere. Like she's like, there was no talk of dogs or anything, and then all of a sudden she just happened upon that part of the book where they said, oh, they were talking about a dog, and then the dog's name was Penny, and then it said Penny was a good dog, and it was like, man, how crazy is that? We live in a crazy world, man. Like I don't know how to explain it, but I think
it is.
yeah, man. I think you know when you pay attention to those things, you just acknowledge them and show gratitude for the signs that you say, okay, yeah. Like my dad died in 2023, like I said, and I was getting angel numbers nonstop around the time when he was in the hospital. But I thought they were angel numbers like, hey, everything's gonna be okay. So I kept telling my family, hey, everything's gonna be okay. But what was actually happening, I think they were just letting me know we're with you, right? Like, and then once I realized, like, oh, they were just saying they were with me, like everything's gonna be fine, don't worry about it, that kind of stuff. So talking about dads and stuff, man.
That's tough. It's tough. It is really tough. Oh yeah. Man. So this college show turned into us just having a conversation, which I think is fantastic. I really enjoy it. I think this is great, and I think we're gonna get close to wrapping it up, which is fine. It is what it is. I actually really had a great time talking with you, Brad. I really enjoy your perspective and how you see things. It's great, man.
Yeah, same. Like you said, it seems like we're like-minded, so it's like easy to talk to somebody when you can totally just jump right in and you already feel like you know each other and you can keep the conversation going. And I know this was a call-in show, and I asked you before. I was like, I hope I don't want to. I asked you to come on the show because I was like, I love doing these things, man. I love talking to people because I don't have like a fan base like this where people want to join in and like conversate with or converse with me. Like so, like I love interacting with people.
It is what it is. You know what though? I think that you were doing so well. Like you had so many. You have so many stories, and this has been a fantastic conversation. That I think everybody watching it was just enjoying this, and yeah. So it's that like Diana says, it's great conversation. Exactly.
Thank you.
So
man. Yeah, I do. I thought it was going to be like people. Do people call in typically? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Like Mouse, my mod, she's been on a couple times. She's got some great stories. Tyler, he's got some great stories as well. Yeah, there's been a bunch, and I thought Raphael was going to be on as well. Like he said he was going to come on, but he didn't make it, and that's. I don't hold anybody, it's like if people say, I'm going to try to, I'll come, I'll be there. It is what it is. If they show up, they show up. If they don't, they don't. Yes.
One thing I will say is that we both have probably listened to shows. We still listen to shows, right?
Yeah.
And it's like at some point we were in the chat room as well, right? I was in the chat room 10 years ago with different shows, and I was afraid to call in and stuff. And I think everybody who does this stuff wants to talk too, right? Wants to share their story, but they don't know how to start a podcast. They don't know how to do this, or they don't know how to do that. Dude, listen, if you got stories, call in and talk, man. It's so cool, and it makes you feel so much better because you got people that like Ryan that like, they can. I was on the show with Mark Steves from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy. Yeah, and I kept saying, dude, I know it's weird, and I know that he's like, dude, this is the home of weird. Stop saying that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like, I forgot that it's like-minded people, right? So like, it's not gonna be like, people aren't gonna think you're crazy for what you're saying. You can say literally anything, and it doesn't surprise us anymore. It's like nothing you say is gonna be crazy.
Yeah, some of the stories that I've heard, and I hate calling them like. I mean, actually, I like calling them stories, but there's everyone's experiences. Everybody has their own experiences. And I call them stories because that's how we used to always pass on our experiences. We tell stories and we pass down stories of our history, of everything. So everybody's stories are amazing, and it's some of them are just absolutely absolutely mind-blowing. You know, it blows your mind that these things can actually happen. And, you know, like I said, that my and I think it was Andy. I think it's Andy or Andrew that I had on for my Michigan podcast, the Michigan one that I had, Nightmare in Michigan. It was, his experience was probably one of the craziest ones. Andy McGrath, I think it is. Yeah, he had the craziest experience ever. You know, and these things happen, and it's just, you know, you got to be open to this all, because and when I look at all my experiences that I've had, I'm like, well, I've had this. Why can't these other people have these experiences as well? You know, it's just crazy. And it's kind of funny, because how I opened the show, I said, you know, 70% of Americans believe in angels. But if you tell someone that you've seen an angel, you've had an experience with an angel, let's reverse that. It's almost 70% of the people aren't going to believe you. I'd say even more than that. You know, it's probably like 85, 90%. But here, we believe. You know, it's kind of, I like to ask questions about the experience, not to question the experience.
Yeah, same here, man. I'm like, yeah, tell me your story, because it's
Yeah.
not, like you said, it's not an story. It's an experience that you've had. And who am I to say that your perception of reality or something that you've experienced is like any different than my? This all might be made up to me, as far as I know. You know, like I might be just projecting this as some. Maybe I'm really in some kind of insane asylum somewhere, banging my head against the wall, thinking I'm doing
I'm
a
doing a podcast with
right
this guy
now.
named
Yeah,
Ryan.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's funny. I saw like these creepy stories, you know, it's like these three-line creepy stories, you know, and it was like, yeah, for his third wish, he asked to read people's minds, and then all he heard was twos and ones, like ones and twos, you know, like, okay, it is starting to rain here. So I think on that note, Brad, I'm gonna call this a good night. You know, this was fantastic.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on, and seriously, anytime I have these and you want to come on, by all means say, hey, can I come on? I don't ever have a problem with it.
Dude, I will shut my mouth next time, because I had no idea
No,
that people were actually going to be calling in and
no,
sharing
no,
stories.
no.
Please don't, please, y'all just call in and say, shut the hell up, Brad, because I will talk and talk and talk and talk and talk until
Hey,
I'm
that's what we do.
sore.
That is what we do. We talk,
Yeah.
you know, that's I've been born with the gift of gab, and I think you do as well. But, you know, as long as we're spreading the good word, spreading the truth, I think that's the important thing.
Yes, there's truth, and there's everything else. Like, what's the comedian Cat Williams said, right? He's like,
Yeah.
it's this side and the other side, and that's you're either on the side of truth or you're on the side of darkness, and that's what
Yep.
it is, man. So yeah, thanks for sharing the truth, man, and sharing your truth, and thank y'all, thank you, Diana, and thank you, DJ Tyler Radio. I really appreciate you guys. Thank y'all for welcoming me. I'm, you know, I know I don't know anything about y'all or, you know, anything like that, but you guys have been great. Y'all didn't say anything about my red face yet, so because I've been coughing my butt off the whole time. So thank y'all for not doing that.
and for those who haven't, you know, go check out Brad's podcast, Awaken Podcast. He's been on, you know, some big shows. It's fantastic, and he's going to be the episode that he did with me will be released. I think it's I'm going to have it in mid to late August. I pretty much finished it. I was trying to upload the video last night, but it wasn't working. What was crazy though is during the interview we were talking about how electronics can be manipulated by forces, and we had issues. We had electronic issues right after we were saying that, which was interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But thank you for having me on, man. I'm sorry I talk so much. So
Not a problem, Brad. Not a problem. Thank you so much. I'm just going to put you back in the green room here.
all right, buddy.
All right, everyone. I want to say thank you so much for showing up, you know, and supporting the show. Just you guys being here is a huge support, you know, and I definitely want to say, you know, thank you for DJ Tyler Radio for that donation. You know, I don't ever expect anything, but it's always much appreciated. Also, if you guys want to support the show as well, you can become members of the channel. I have a Patreon as well. You know, you can get some swag through the Patreon. I have shirts, and I'm making new shirts as well. So on Printify. So those ones look really cool. And the rain is picking up here, so I'm going to call this a night. Keep your curiosity wandering. Keep the light lit. And always, always find your way home. Let's try that again.
I look forward to our next adventure together as we navigate the mysteries that lie ahead. Until our paths cross again, keep your curiosity wandering and ensure the light remains lit.